What are some of the, properties, if you will, of these foods that help with your metabolism?
Well, let me explain how your body, how food can fire up your body's metabolism. So I'm going to take you back to body fat. Like, again, I'm not a diet person. In fact, I don't really like fad diets and trend diets and crash diets. And, like anyone else, I have stepped out of the shower and out of the corner of my eye. I see something on my body in the mirror that, like, yeah, I don't like that. I got to get in a better shape, or I got to get in a better diet. Like, I mean, it happens to all of us, right? That's a common thing. And then you step on a scale and the number that comes up isn't the number that you had hoped for. So you feel right away from the get go, like, oh man, I'm disappointed. I got to do something about it. Well, I can tell you that in my book, what I want people to realize is that science is empowering us, because you can buy these metabolism activating, fight fatting foods right in our grocery store. So in the book, the whole second section of the book, if you're anybody who wants to like have surprise and delight, I write the book as if I invited you, like when you were a kid, to jump into the grocery cart. I take you on a tour of the grocery store. I invite you like a kid to jump into like your mom's grocery cart where she's pushing you around. What I do is I whisper in your ear and tell you what to put in the cart. So you go to the produce section, and there are foods that are like tomatoes that have lycopene that actually dissolve into your body fat within an hour or so after you eat the tomato. And that lycopene turns on your body fat. And what it does, it doesn't turn on the jiggly fat. It turns on the kind of fat called brown fat. And brown fat isn't jiggly. It's not lumpy bumpy. It's paper thin. And it's paper thin, and it's pressed along your neck, under your breastplate, under your arms, a little bit behind your back, a little bit in your belly. And when the lycopene from tomatoes and other foods will actually get to your fat, it lights up the fat like the striker you have on a gas oven. You click it, click, 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 whoosh. When that brown fat lights up, it's literally burning. It's thermogenic, meaning it's a space heater. It creates heat. In order to create heat, to fire up, it has to draw energy, right? Just like a space heater does, you got to plug it in. Or just like your gas range does, it draws down the gas from a gas tank. Now, in this case, your brown fat, when it fires up due to food, okay, which could be tomatoes, could be chili peppers, by the way, Serrano chilies, ancho chilies, Anaheim chilies, will all do this in their own way, fires up the brown fat. And where does your brown fat draw its fuel from? It draws it from the harmful fat that's stored extra energy. So good fat, brown fat, will burn down harmful fat, white fat, jiggly fat, and it draws it right down. And the first place it goes is from the most dangerous kind of fat that's stuck inside your body. All right. So foods like tomatoes, ancho peppers, avocado, broccoli, bok choy, onions, garlics, green onions, red onions, these are all foods that you would see in the grocery store. Tangerines, lemons, watermelon. Sound familiar? Anyone listening to this? These are actually, science has shown, these are metabolism activating foods. They trigger your brown fat to start turning on its space heater function to burn down extra fuel. And then what I do is I take people from the produce section into the other sections of the grocery store, including the beverage section, including the forbidden middle aisles. Remember, people used to say, don't shop, only shop on the perimeter, stay away from the middle aisles. I tell people there are treasures, metabolism acting treasure foods right in those middle aisles. You just need to be able to tell the real gold from the fool's gold. So that's why I call the whole chapter Treasure Hunt. And then we can go to the seafood section to look for healthy metabolism activating foods as well. The long and short of it is that you can get these foods in your regular grocery store. That means that it's accessible to everyone. And many of these foods are pretty inexpensive as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that, because I do think that it is important to pay attention to the quality of your diet as you are making these small changes in your nutrition and in your health, because over time, what you will find is that you're going to feel better overall. You're going to feel better physically. You will start to lose, I think, more weight, because just by default, I think a lot of these foods as well tend to have less calories, right, than do like a lot of the other like processed foods. And I just think you'll find that it's not as hard. Once you get down the path a little bit, you'll realize, like, since you feel better, you'll now have like a deeper connection to it. And you're like, man, I'm so glad I'm doing this. I want to continue to feel like this. I'm not going to stop. And I know we've spent some time talking about metabolism. We've talked about like body fat and brown fat and how to combat all this. I want to talk about sleep, because I think that without us getting a good quality night's sleep, I think it's going to be hard to do any of the stuff that we're talking about now, right? What have you found in research? What have you found in your own practice or even in your own experience with regards to habits, nutrition habits and things we can do on a daily basis to help improve the quality of the sleep? Like, what have you found with that?
Well, first of all, one of the remarkable things about sleep is how restorative it actually is. But sleeping is one of those everyday activities that nobody teaches us how to do, right? I mean, we nobody teaches us really how to eat. Nobody teaches us how to sleep, right? So there's so many factors that can affect our sleep. We don't just get tired and conk out, on the couch. Oh yeah, we can do that, But the fact of the matter is that sleeping there's an art to actually sleeping. There's kind of a preparation phase for sleeping. And again, we live in a modern society with bright lights, a neon, we got all this buzzy activity going on. Anybody who's been to Vegas knows, like that's a town that is set up to keep you from sleeping because it gives you some stimulation, surround sound stimulation 24 hours a day. Okay, let me just tell you a couple of things that can be helpful to actually help get better sleep. I think that, if you don't get good sleep, like your whole life is kind of a little bit against you. So, number one, staying physically active, being physically active during the day. You can go to the gym, you can go for a run, but you don't have to. Just going for a walk for 30 minutes actually will help exercise your brain, your circulation, your muscles in a way that actually will help you sleep later in the day. It sends signals to your body that it needs to renew itself, and sleep is part of renewal. So, something as easy as taking a walk for a half an hour every day after dinner, or frankly, anytime, or split it up, actually is a little trick that actually is very useful. Obviously, you don't want to be taking stimulants just before bedtime. Now, I'm somebody who can drink a cup of coffee. I used to live in Italy during my gap year, so I'll have a little tiny cup of espresso after dinner. Doesn't bother me. But for a lot of people, okay, it's an individual. For a lot of people, if you have caffeine at the end of the day after dinner, like it's going to make you wired for the rest of the night, and then you're not going to get good sleep. So I think be really, really mindful of what you're putting into your body as you get into the evening time, particularly, what are you drinking for dinner? All right. Ironically, even though people say you drink wine or beer, alcohol makes me sleepy. It can make you sleepy, but actually, when you actually have booze in your system, you never actually get good, deep sleep. The alcohol in your brain actually doesn't allow you to go dive deep. So you kind of a little bit near the surface. You're restless. You're not getting full renewal sleep. And so that's why, it's important just to recognize that among other reasons you want to control alcohol intake, cut down or cut out, it will interfere with your sleep. Now, the other thing is actually the volume of food. If you eat a lot of food for dinner at night before you go to bed, and especially if you eat close to bedtime, that insulin is jacked up. Your body is full on trying to store that energy, the fuel that you've just eaten, into your cells. That's a lot of work, man. And your factory is running full blast storing these things. I mean, it's kind of like, if you've ever moved out of an apartment or a house, this is like, like when you overeat or you eat too close to bedtime, imagine having an entire crew packing up your house, trying to store everything. All right. That's pretty disruptive. And so you can't just brush your teeth and lay down and expect you're going to crash right away. So give yourself more time and don't eat too much. Don't overload your metabolism. It's going to dog you as you get into your night. And by the way, if you're not getting good quality sleep, your metabolism is not burning the energy optimally either. You're cutting into that aspect of trying to elevate your own health. Now, obviously, stress, again, going all the way back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, stress, trauma, anger, emotional injury, anxiety, those things also, if we don't confront them somehow and deal with them, there's lots of different tools that can be used to deal with them. If we don't confront that part of it, we're also not going to get a good night's sleep. All right. And by the way, when you don't get a good night's sleep, something that's not known by a lot of people is that when we're sleeping deeply, our brain detoxifies itself. But the way that it detoxifies itself is by opening a sewer system. So most people don't know that our brains have a sewer system called the glymphatic system. Literally, it's like the underground sewers of Paris. All right. They're actually shut during the day. Nothing really leaks out of your brain. Your brain wants to hang on to everything all the input you're giving to it. but it accumulates toxins. It accumulates free radicals. It accumulates toxins from the food that we eat, the air that we breathe, the inflammation that actually is part that can happen and function in your brain. At night, when you get good quality sleep, the lymphatic system opens up like the sewers of Paris, and it flushes out all those toxins, all that waste products, all the dead cells, all the inflammation gets flushed out of your brain. When you don't get good quality sleep, or when you get little sleep, disturbed sleep, the sewer system doesn't fully open. And that's why when you don't get a good night's rest, the next day you feel foggy. You feel a little headachy. You feel a little confused, muddy, toxic brain.
Yeah, I love what you said there. And I think like when you eat a lot late at night, what I found is you just feel like uncomfortable. Like it's hard to go to sleep just because you feel kind of stuffed, right? Because you've eaten so many calories in a short amount of time, and then you're just going to like lay down and you're just resting and you can't fall asleep because you're just, like you said, you're waiting for your body to digest the food. You're experiencing some discomfort. You know, you're kind of still awake because your body's still awake. So yeah, I love the tips that you provided as far as how to optimize sleep, because like you said, sleep is so important. And you said something that I wanted to talk about as well. And that, you know, a lot of times people will wake up kind of in a daze or foggy if they don't get good sleep. And I think a lot of people now, based on stress, based on their lives and just, you know, maybe what's gone on over the last few years where people are just kind of at this low level stress, their energy is depleted just naturally. And maybe they're aware of it, maybe they're unaware of it. In your research, in your experience, what role does food play in this? Like, do you think that, you know, if you eat processed food all day, it can have an impact on your mood, or do you think that's false?
No, it's absolutely true. The science shows that to be true for sure. Our diet affects our gut microbiome, the healthy bacteria in our gut. And a lot of people may not realize this, but the research is really, really making it clear. The healthy gut bacteria that we have in the lower part of our gut, it's in our colon, a part of the colon called the cecum. It's a little bag near the end of our gut. It's filled with something on the order of 39 trillion bacteria. It's called our gut microbiome. And when you talk about gut health, largely it's referring to actually that bacteria being very happy. It's an ecosystem. Think about that bacteria ecosystem like the Great Barrier Reef. All right. It's an enormous collection of life, bacteria being life. And in the Great Barrier Reef, you've got this myriad. You've got different corals, you've got turtles, you've got big fish, you've got sharks, you've got all kinds of different colorful things, living organisms living together. And it makes the sea around it healthy. And our gut bacteria makes our bodies healthy. They help us heal, they help our immune system. But very importantly, back to the mood and the sleep part, it turns out we now know our gut bacteria sends text messages to our brain. And among the things that our gut bacteria helps our brain release are social hormones and hormones that control our mood and lower our anxiety. Hormones like serotonin, like dopamine, like oxytocin. These are the hormones that make us depressed, happy, sad, anxious, moody, cloudy. And also, the good news is that when your gut bacteria is happy, it makes our brain release happy hormones. One of them is called oxytocin, as I mentioned. Oxytocin, there's one bacteria, by the way, called Lactobacillus reuteri. And this is just how one area of research, and I want to cite for people listening to this, Lactobacillus reuteri, which is a natural gut bacteria, text messages to our brain. It causes our brain to release oxytocin. Oxytocin is a mood hormone. It's a brain hormone that makes us feel good. It's the same hormone that you get when you are picking up a good friend at the airport and you see them coming out of to the baggage claim and you give them a big hug. All right. You feel good, right? That's oxytocin. Your brain is flooding out. When you have a kiss, a French kiss, your brain is pouring out oxytocin, makes you feel good. When you have an orgasm, for a few microseconds, your brain is pumping out as much oxytocin as it can. When you disturb your gut microbiome by eating foods that destroy our gut health, you actually interfere, you snip the wire, you prevent that text message from coming through. It's kind of like putting your mood, your connection between your gut brain connection on airplane mode. It can't signal. And so therefore, you don't feel as good. Now, what are some of the foods that can actually actively destroy our gut brain connection? Unfortunately, it's the food that we tend to consume the most, ultra processed foods, the stuff in a box, in a bag, in a can, in a tin, and the things that have 20 or so ingredients that you can't pronounce except that what you know is that they're artificial preservatives, artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, additives that actually make it last longer on the shelf. All those things that kind of had made our modern mass food industry the Goliath that actually is. We're beginning now to do the research to realize, you know what? I'm glad that, we're able to address the hunger needs of more people, but the quality of the food, remember the quality of the fuel in your tank, that's low quality fuel. And when you actually put all those chemicals in your tank, you're poisoning your gut bacteria. When your gut bacteria are poisoned, they're not able to, you put them on airplane mode, they're not able to signal to your brain. In fact, sometimes they send inflammatory signals, which actually darken your mood to begin with.